is called The Thing That Should Not Be.
So. No. No. What happened?
Well, lyrically, it's, I wouldn't say it's a continuation of the Cthulhu thing, because it isn't really, but it's the same sort of subject as the Cthulhu. I'm not really as familiar with that as you might be.
Well,
in terms of the lyrical content, I can tell you about
the subject matter is of a great old godlike kind of being that generally does all harm and no good. Thus the title. I mean, if someone was to come across something like that, they would feel that it should not happen, should not be.
It's it's inspired by the original H.P. Lovecraft saga of the Cthulhu thing and all that. This is one of the spin-offs of where the inspiration came. Is one of the spin-offs from that mythology.
That's
that
one of the
Lovecraft
titles given
created
to that particular creature. So it's more a title of a being rather than a moralistic attitude of any kind, or a statement of some kind of opinion or anything. It's not like that at all. It's just something that's so bad that it.
Yeah, but the title is The Thing That Should Not Be.
The thing that we can write it down.
Okay. What, for instance, could you imagine as a thing?
Excuse me?
What, for instance, could you imagine as being the thing?
Well, I mean, in this case, it refers to a being which is sort of ugly in many ways.
It's mythological.
Yeah. I mean, it's a story.
It's not a realistic. It's one of the few songs that are not realistic.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the first songs that we've written lyrically that's not, we're trying to bring in the real world or any of that kind of. This is just sort of. And I think if the Cthulhu song on the last album would have had lyrics that would have been in the style of this, this is inspired by, a book, a book which is a novel, and it's, basically not anything too real. I think musically, that song is a bit different than the other ways, at least the way I look at it, is that it's the last song we've written on this album. The last song that was written was actually written here in the studio, most of it. And I think it's, at least from my point of view, I think it's, I wouldn't say it's a new direction. I wouldn't say it that way, but I think it's sort of showing that we can do things that from a musical point of view are quite simple, but works really well as an overall song, where it's a sort of song as opposed to some of the other songs on the album, where you don't have to go through a lot of time changes. There's not a lot of what you would say from a musicianship point of view, brilliantness, and
it's not a real intricate kind of.
Yeah, it's very basic in the playing kind of thing, but the key thing here is that it just works that way. For instance, the drumming.
Maybe more rock and roll?
Well, I think the thing that makes a song like this one work is the overall feel. For instance, from where I'm playing the drums, I could do, a lot of, drum fills here and there, but this kind of song that really works well, we just keep it flowing and sort of really heavy and tight. Whereas I think something like some of the AC/DC songs where, from a musicianship point of view, there's not a lot in it, but it's just the feel of it that works. You take the real steady drumming of Phil Rudd, and it's not a lot of time change, a lot of musical, brilliantness, but it just sort of works from a feel point of view. And this, I think, is sort of that song, which could be, that style could be, developed even more on the last album, or it's like where you get, I look at it from at least the way I play drums in this song, where you get so confident in you get so much confidence in your playing that you don't have to show everyone that you can do more than you're actually doing, where less works more. And where this song, for instance, if you compare it to Disposable Heroes, on the other side, it's a lot of playing, a lot of time changes, a lot of musical ability and so forth. But this is quite the opposite of it. It's a basic sort of, as you say, rock and roll thing that just really moves and grooves, that kind of thing,
Okay. So the fourth track of the first
it's called, at the moment, and this is probably how it's going to stick, it's called Welcome Home, parentheses, Sanitarium, because if you just put Welcome Home, people wouldn't really understand it. It's a song about...
is that the ballad?
Yes, it's the ballad. It's basically about a person who is in a sanitarium, and he feels from his point of view that he is sane and shouldn't be there. He's locked up in this cage with all these other mentally sick people, and he feels that, it's a bit, I wouldn't say inspired, but it's a bit like the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest situation with Jack Nicholson, where he's hanging out in this sort of mental hospital, and he feels that, he's sane and shouldn't be there, and, escape and try and get away from it all and so forth. And, it's a ballad, whatever you want to call it. It's a song that, has a bit softer beginning and builds, kind of song that builds up, and so
as far as the reputation of Metallica has not been established by ballads, I would like to know what is a ballad according to you?
Well, that's why I'm hesitant to use the word, because I don't really think that you have to categorize each song saying this is thrash, this is ballad. Because if you listen to the last 3 minutes of the song, it's not a ballad. So it depends how you approach it. I prefer to not put things so much in categories. With the last song of the first album,
Metallica ballad would more or less be a slower song that's maybe not as ultimately heavy as the other ones. Something a little. The guitar work is not as so that's
And in a way, Fade to Black from your last album could be considered as a ballad. So
it's about as close as
what is ballad according to you? That's what I
Fade to Black. Okay, Fade to Black is a ballad.
And I think one of the reasons why Ride the Lightning worked so well was that you had 8 songs on there that were pretty much completely different from each other. And I think one of the reasons this album works, or hopefully will work, or at least from our point of view works, is that it's got that same sort of thing to it, where you have 8 songs that are fairly different from each other in feels and in sort of overall whatever. And I think if this song has, like an 11th cousin on Ride the Lightning, it's Fade to Black.
Okay. Plus, a Scorpion song, like you said, Still Loving You, that's a very true ballad in that sense, but, a Metallica ballad would not what you would be called a true ballad. It's a mutation of the word ballad.
For me, I don't know. For me, I'd say that Beyond the Realms of Death, Judas Priest, I think that's a ballad. That's where that word fits in really well.
There's everything on this album that we do is basically for our pleasure. There's absolutely none. They have not. The record company says, "Give us 8 songs."
Yeah,
that's
been about
the extent of the pressure. That is it. We want 8 songs.
At one point, there was talk about maybe only 7 songs, but they said since one of them was an instrumental, that they would like to have 8 songs. Period. And this whole thing with people that, thinking and making up these ideas, Metallica, wimp out, U.S. radio, big label. It's kind of funny because we, from being on the inside of all that shit, we know that, this is just as much Metallica as it's ever been, except, the only difference being that in the studio we don't have the pressure of having to be out of the studio at a given time financially, so we have a bit more time to explore ideas and production things. But there has been nothing, and people will probably find this hard to believe, there has been nothing, absolutely nothing from the record company about, you have to have a song, or you have to have a short song. None of these songs are under 5 minutes. All right, period. There's not a song that has a 4 in front of it. So there's been nothing about having a short song or a mid-tempo song or a song, you know, with a catchy harmony, chorus, cat, or whatever. There's been nothing, and part of that I think also has to do with our management. Really, first of all, have a very good understanding of what we are and what we do and the way we should sort of be managed. And they have the record company in America fairly, you know, in a tight grip because, you know, Cliff Bernstein is one of the most respected managers in America because of Def Leppard, you know, biggest band and all this shit. And also he has Dokken on Elektra, which is the same label. So he has a very good insight into the company, and they know, the record company, that when he says don't get involved with the songs or the recording or the production, then they know him enough to sort of say, all right, we won't.
And they respect his opinion.
They respect that. And, you know, so this situation that all these people have thought would happen with Metallica and big label and all this, I mean...
So coming back to
not there.
Masters of Puppets.
Master.